Right. Good evening. Good evening, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Councillor Mohammed Ayub. I chair the Traffic Management Subcommittee. I would like to welcome you to tonight's meeting, which councillors are now required to attend in person following the expiry of the Coronavirus Act, which permits councillors meeting online. We will be using the equipment connected to the chamber into Microsoft Teams meetings. This is a live stream available through the Teams, and a recording of this meeting will be uploaded onto the council website afterwards. Thank you. I will continue with the first. Do I have any declaration of interest? None. I don't see any indications. Minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 12th of January 2023. Can I take those to be the correct minutes? Good, thank you. Now, moving on to item 3, which is questions from member of public, which we have none, and we have and councillors. We have a question from Councillor White on London Road traffic lights outage. Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. When I last asked about the traffic lights outage at the junction of London Road and Cholmondeley Road, I was informed that works to reinstate the traffic lights would be beginning before Christmas. However, we are now almost in March and temporary lights are still in place. These traffic lights were damaged in approximately June 2022. That is, I say 7 months ago, but I think it's almost 8 now. Residents frequently raise problems with the temporary traffic lights not working, causing hazards. With the lead councillor, I'd like to apologise. And what is his updated view on when the new traffic lights will be installed?
Thank you, Councillor White. Can I invite
Thank you, Chair.
The lead member, Councillor Tony Page.
I thank Councillor White for his question. As I explained to him in my answer at Policy Committee on the 15th of December, the traffic signal equipment at this junction have been in place for decades and have proven to be very reliable. During this period, equipment had started to become obsolete, and hence is the reason why the council is investing in proactive junction upgrades. This is very costly and will be prioritised at those locations that are developing a greater number of faults. The road traffic incident that led to much of the equipment at this location being destroyed, including the complex control unit, was clearly unforeseen and has necessitated the redesign and complete technical refresh in an unscheduled way. I hope it is appreciated that instances such as this are thankfully rare, and that they remove the ability to undertake the necessary prior investigation, design and equipment ordering ahead of the decommissioning of a junction. Much work has been undertaken, but the council has suffered from equipment supply chain issues, undoubtedly influenced by the impact of COVID, the war in Ukraine, and I might also add Brexit. But anyway, and discovery of engineering difficulties, all of which can add to delays. An example of this is that since initial investigation works were undertaken, there have been ducting collapses which will necessitate excavation of London Road, a traffic sensitive undertaking at the best of times. These duct repair works will commence imminently, which will allow installation of the new traffic signal equipment. It is expected that the signal replacement works will commence in the week commencing 20th March 2023, following completion of the duct repair works. While the delay in reinstatement is regretful, temporary traffic signals have been in place to assist local residents and the wider travelling public, and I'm assured that they are now back working, I hope. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Page. Councillor White, do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, just a bit of information for Councillor Page. First of all, the batteries in the lights fail on a weekly basis, and that means that not only is it hard for cars to get out of that junction, but pedestrians find it very difficult to cross London Road and get over to the bus stop, which is there. But can you provide clarification on if you're happy with the performance of the council's traffic light contractors in this instance?
It isn't
Councillor
what you
Page.
describe as traffic light contractors. There's a whole series of different supply chain issues and suppliers involved in this, Councillor White. I'm more than happy for you to have a tutorial from Mr. Penman and colleagues and Sam Sheen about this. Would that it were so simple. All that I can say is that our officers are working as hard as possible to deliver the necessary repairs as quickly as possible. But the problems that have arisen, not least with the duct repair works, have further delayed the workings. I have considerable sympathy with local residents, and I know it's frustrating, but the work needs to be done properly. As far as the battery issue is concerned, I wasn't aware that that was a regular occurrence. There is no excuse for the batteries not being properly charged and supplied, and I will certainly take that matter away and discuss further with officers, because that is an issue under our control.
Thank you, Councillor Page. We'll move to item 4, which is petitions. We have one petition from a member of the public. Can I call on the petitioner Leslie Wilson on traffic calming measures on Rotherfield Road? Yeah, no, you press the middle button. The mic should. Right. Good evening, welcome, and you have 5 minutes to speak on the petition. So your time begins when you start speaking, and when it's a minute to go, I will let you know. Thank you.
There has been an issue with drivers going too fast up Rotherfield Way for as long as I can remember. In 1990, I was sitting at the junction with Surley Row, where I live, waiting to turn right and indicating when a hurrying car hit me from behind. The driver admitted full responsibility. I had quite nasty whiplash injury and needed 10 weeks of treatment. It has, however, got much worse as traffic has increased with new building everywhere. Local residents submitted a petition for a pedestrian crossing in 2016, but nothing has been done, though I understand from you that the proposal is still on the books. We've been gathering the concerns of Rotherfield Way residents and people who live in the part of Surley Row that leads only off Rotherfield Way, both verbally and in writing. Everyone surveyed felt that traffic went too fast on the road. 73% of those who completed the survey had had near misses with speeding cars when driving in and out of their property. 68% said they had actually been deterred from crossing Rotherfield Way on foot because of speeding cars. 59% had been deterred from cycling. 71% are concerned for their children's safety. 100% wished to see traffic calming measures. In the meantime, as well as increased traffic on Rotherfield Way, we've seen roads roundabout getting refuges and chicanes. Peppard Road, Buckingham Drive have got speed cameras and refuges. This actually provides an incentive for anyone in a hurry to use Rotherfield Way at speed, because it gives them a clear run down into central Caversham. And it does feel very strange to us that Rotherfield Way is the only road not to get any measures at all. We are aware that the council has carried out speed checks on traffic, but the operators were wearing high visibility jackets and carrying a very visible radar gun, and it's not surprising that traffic slowed down as soon as they saw them. We who live there see a very different picture. Of particular concern is the exit from Surley Row on the east side, whose residents have no option but to drive out onto Rotherfield Way. The junction here is just below a blind corner. Traffic approaching the crossroads will typically speed up as they drive away from the refuge further up the hill, ignoring the crossroads signs and the slow signs. I personally have had many near misses coming out, both crossing the road on foot and in a car. And this is where multitudes of school children pour out and cross the road every morning and afternoon. And it's dreadful to see them because it's terrifying. Many residents are very concerned for High Down students' safety, and I understand that there have been minor incidents which wouldn't necessarily be reported to the police. Reading Borough Council are very keen and properly keen to get people out of their cars, walking and cycling. But for those of us who live on Rotherfield Way and in Surley Road, a dangerous road is a serious deterrent. Another serious issue is that lack of provision for pedestrians to cross helps to keep elderly and disabled people penned up inside their houses. I want to finish by reading out to you a comment I received just this morning from a resident. We don't believe that Rotherfield Way is the only road where traffic calming is impossible. We have waited years and residents are unanimous that something has to be done and done soon. The council has taken
You have a
action
minute, please,
on
to
other
finish up.
roads, and that shows that difficulties and expense can be overcome. Nobody wants to wait till there's a fatality, till a school child is killed, for example, and a family is left grieving.
Thank you. Mrs. Wilson, stay seated if you wish.
Okay.
Thank you. Could you switch the mic off, please? Thank you. Thank you for bringing that in to us, and we'll take that aboard. Can I ask James Penn to introduce this, give a bit of brief, this petition, please? Yeah.
No, thank you very much. So the recommended action is to update the entry that's on the traffic management measures requests report to include traffic calming. Acknowledge and take on board all the points that you've made, and it's just to make the point that it's not that it's impossible, but there's requests for these kind of measures across the borough, and we need to find funding for it. And the hope is, as you've correctly reflected, that there is a drive nationally now for active travel, and hopefully much greater pool of resources that are available to make that happen, make improvements, get improvements delivered. So at the moment, the only action I can recommend is for updating the entry and retaining it on the measures list that's on the agenda later on.
Thank you, Mr. Penn. Councillor Yeo, did you indicate?
But yeah, thanks. Hi, thank you, Leslie, for bringing the petition, and for the other residents that are here tonight that have also, I know, helped you with the petition and with Councillor Kitchingham. I would support what James has said, that the council officer, that we add it to the list of sadly currently unfunded traffic measures, that we as a council don't have the money for these individual requests yet. I mean, it does need, we do need to look at options, traffic calming measures on Rotherfield Way. It's been that way for many years, and it's got worse since, I mean, certainly since I was a child and used to travel across to High Down, and that's partly because of increased parking on the streets, but also because you've got larger cars and there are more of them that make the roads somewhat more hazardous. But I mean, yeah, I'd support adding it to the list, and that we actively seek additional funding when measures that are available come up.
Yes. Right, Councillor Page, you're next. What do you want?
Yeah, can I thank the petitioner for her contribution this evening. I just wanted to highlight the point that's made in paragraph 4.3 about speed enforcement and traffic calming. The council is not does not have the legal power to enforce against speeding. Only the police have that, as you're probably aware, which means we are considerably constrained as to what we can do, because the only other option then are traffic calming measures. Now, it is our experience, and we know from experience around the borough, that whilst residents will call for traffic calming, detailed consultations are required because quite often residents will want traffic calming but outside somebody else's house, or chicanes away from their house. Parking is sometimes displaced to accommodate chicanes, build-outs, traffic calming measures. So they are not easily delivered. Even if there were a pot of gold that we could dip into, we would need to consult in detail with local residents. And we have, as I say, experienced difficulties in areas of the borough with specific traffic calming measures. But even traffic calming measures only go so far. There is a small minority of motorists who defy humps and will take them at speed, who defy chicanes and other restrictions, and only the speed enforcement available through speed cameras will deter those. And that is the power we wish to see given to the council. The police have almost abrogated their responsibility on this front. Their priority are the rural hamlets and villages away from Reading. And until we get those powers, I'm afraid that the amount we can do is severely limited. We have just written, as the result of a resolution at full council recently, we have written to the Home Secretary in a letter which I'm more than happy to, it's a public document that we sent on the 10th of February. It's not been either acknowledged or replied to. The posturing Suella Braverman is not interested in these matters. And it's quite apparent that the lack of response from the Home Office is just indicative of the total contempt that she has for these issues. But I'm confident that a change of government will deliver these powers to authorities such as Reading, and we will then be able to offer an effective service to areas such as Rotherfield Road. So Rotherfield Way, my apologies. So rest assured that the concerns you have raised are ones that are shared across the borough. They're shared by the council, and we will continue to lobby for the appropriate powers and funding to be able to tackle this sort of problem. But hopefully the fairly full report that's been prepared that you can share with residents will be of reassurance that we are not in any way ignoring the importance of the issues you've raised. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Carnell, you indicate.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you to the petitioner for bringing this here. I'm a ward councillor for Caversham Heights, which obviously forms part of the roads in question. I have on previous occasions asked about the pedestrian crossings on Rotherfield Way and on Oakley Road. The Oakley Road crossing in particular has become more urgent now with the crossing just along Kidmore Road there, so for the school children. And I'm delighted that the entry for the pedestrian crossings is going to be expanded out for traffic calming measures as well, and you can rest assured I'll be chasing this up. But as has been pointed out by other members of the committee, unfortunately we need to chase the funding as well. But thank you again for bringing this before us.
Thank you, Councillor Carnell. So can we move on to recommended action on this? Do the committee agree to on 2.2, 2.1 to take this forward? Thank you. Mrs. Leslie, thank you for coming in and bring that in. You may stay seated for the rest of the meeting, or if you wish to leave, you can do so as well. Thank you. We'll move on to item 5, which is Reading Green Park Station on page 13 to 28 in the report. Can I ask James Clements to briefly introduce?
Thank you, Chair. Reading Green Park Station is a new railway station on the Reading to Basingstoke line. It will serve local residents of Green Park Village as well as the business park and select car leasing stadium. Alongside the station, the council has developed a multimodal transport interchange that includes vehicle, blue badge and cycle parking, as well as a taxi rank and bus interchange. To effectively support each of these, officers are proposing a number of measures be introduced to manage and enforce movements and parking in the interchange area, including double yellow lines, bus lane enforcement, parking restrictions and a taxi rank. Officers are seeking committee approval to proceed with a statutory consultation for these items and those listed in the report.
Thank you. Do I have Councillor Page?
Can I support these measures? It does raise, of course, the obvious question about when the station will be opened, and 4.3 expresses the view that spring in meteorological terms can be a somewhat elastic concept, and I think that's probably the best way of describing the final knockings of the approval process. The station is complete. It could be used tomorrow. The timetable has been approved. The trains are there. We are mired in the final process of the Office of Road and Rail and other governmental bodies to give the necessary approvals. As soon as those approvals are given, we can then plan for the appropriate publicity to publicise the opening of the station. So that is the update, and we will obviously continue to press for decisions, but none of the decisions required sit with this authority at all. We've done our bit and are awaiting, as I say, the final approvals. But the fragmented rail industry delivers a set of approvals that in the old days under British Rail, it would have been signed off on a single desk. But thanks to the fragmented and disastrous rail privatisation, this is a legacy of it. And we're told it's going to be put together, but meantime, we pay the price and just have to sit and wait.
Thank you, Councillor Page. Councillor White, you indicated.
Thank you. Just a quick question. I had a cycle campaigner asking a little while ago about connecting the station up to the existing cycle network, and at the time, not much progress had been made. It was still a bit up in the air. I don't know if there's any update on that at all.
James.
Thank you, Councillor White. At this time, there hasn't been any progress made on that matter in terms of connecting cycle lanes into or cycle routes into the Green Park station facility, but discussions will remain ongoing with both the business park and Green Park Village.
Thank you. Councillor Cornell, you indicated.
Thank you, Chairman. We also support the recommended actions here. We're very much delighted. Anything that's going to help businesses within Reading is certainly a bonus. I've just a couple of points. I'm not sure if Councillor Page is aware, in meteorological terms, spring started yesterday. I'm told 1st of March, first day of spring. And sometimes when I wake up and hear of strikes on the railways, I sometimes wonder if we have gone back to the days of British Rail. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with everything Councillor Page has said. And speaking as a Whitley Ward councillor, we welcome progress on the Green Park. You know, it could open now. We're probably waiting because of PERDA, but it's nothing to do with the local council or anything. It's more to do with probably the Minister for Road and Rail wanting to come to cut some ribbons down there and take the credit for something he's probably had little to do with. Yeah, it's just to clarify a couple of points to James. It's got designated 12 disabled parking bays with a maximum stay of 12 hours. But in the long stay car park, we have no designated disabled parking bays. So are we going to extend the 12-hour to 24, or are we going to have designated parking bays within the long stay car park, really.
Thank you. James Cunn?
Thank you. I see no reason why we wouldn't be able to extend the current blue badge parking to a 24-hour with no return in 4. I will just consult with officers from the council's parking department and make sure there are no issues with that. But subject to there being no concerns, we'll make sure we consult on the basis of it being 24 hours parking.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Adele, you indicate.
Thank you, Chair. Just being pedantic, there's 2 ways to measure the first day of spring. One of them's 1st of March, one of them's the 20th of March.
Thank you. All right. I don't see any indications from the councillors. Right. Can we move to recommended action on the subcommittee to note on 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4? Do you agree? Yeah, thank you. Sorry, member of public is not allowed to speak on this item. Yeah. Thank you. Item 6 is the Active Travel Fund Tranche 3. James Clements, would you introduce?
Thank you, Chair. Further to the report presented to committee in January, officers have completed the statutory consultation for the proposed measures to be introduced to enable the delivery of active travel segregated cycling on Bath Road and Castle Hill. A total of 148 responses were received, of which generally there was support. 80% supported the implementation of double yellow lines between Russell Street and Jesse Terrace. 75% supported the alteration to the length of the eastbound bus lane on Bath Road, and 71% were in support of the removal of the tidal flow lane on Castle Hill. Officers are recommending that the committee approve the making of the TROs consulted on and to enable the active travel scheme to progress.
Thank you. Councillor Page, you indicated.
Chair, firstly, can I declare an interest that as a resident of Castle Hill, I know the area very well, and would just like to pick up on a few of the repeated misunderstandings about the scheme. Firstly, there is only the loss of 1 bay of residents parking on Castle Hill, needed to ensure a smoother operation of the segregated cycle lane. Unlike some comments, there is only a few yards, or there are only a few yards where there is paint, and that's at the pinch point between Carey Street and the roundabout. The rest of this scheme are fully segregated cycle lanes, which are required rightly by government now when they fund such schemes. So the sort of description that we have in some objectors' comments that this is just paint on the road is completely inaccurate. 98% of this scheme has fully segregated cycle lanes, and those are to the standards now required. The issue of the removal of the tidal flow, I'm old enough, and having lived on Castle Hill for over 40 years, I remember the introduction of the tidal lane and the need for it because of those concentrated spikes of congestion that we had pre-pandemic, the classic rush hour surge. And that's why it was introduced for the period in the morning to ease that flow into town, and it served its function. Post-pandemic now, we do not get anything like the congestion on Castle Hill or most of our radial routes. Indeed, the complaint that you will have seen from residents on Castle Hill who've taken the trouble to respond is one of the constant problem of speeding. And that is a reflection of the much more even spread of traffic. So the proposals that we have this evening are welcomed by local residents because they will also require an element of speed calming. They will build in an element of speed calming by losing one of the lanes, which will enable the segregated cycle lanes to be put in on both sides. So there's overwhelming local support for the scheme as a result. And so, Chair, this delivers a long missing link to connect the town centre with important parts in the west. It is inevitable that with the limited funding that we receive, and I'm grateful to the DFT for funding this scheme, but inevitably it only allows a certain amount of segregated cycle lane, and that progress will be incremental. And as with Sidmouth Street, which constantly is the subject of ill-informed comment, we have just submitted an active travel for scheme to provide better linkages to Sidmouth Street at the junction with Queen's Road, recognising that that's an important missing link. So we have a programme, a priority of programme across the borough to promote cycling into and out of Reading. And this is one of the schemes that is going to encourage cycling. The other complaint, just to finish off on, Chair, and you will have seen this, is that the large numbers of cyclists, for understandable reasons at the moment on Castle Hill, use the pavements on both sides at high speed. And it is not in the interests of either pedestrians or cyclists. And this segregated facility will take cyclists off the pavements, it will make the pavements safer, and it will also encourage, hopefully, more cycling as well. So, Chair, I would propose that we endorse the advertised restrictions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Page. Councillor Getting, you indicated.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose I have to declare an interest as the scheme goes right through through my ward, and as Councillor Page is obviously a constituent of mine. So
yes,
but no, but the serious point is that, and people have mentioned that in the consultation, that this does provide, if you like, a missing link in our plans to obviously have as much segregated cycleway in Reading as possible, particularly on arterial routes. So if you are heading from the west into town now, when you get to the junction of Berkeley Avenue or Bath Road, you actually have essentially two very good routes now into town. One of them is NCN 422, which is a shared path situation, or you can go down Berkeley Avenue on the with white line marking, or you can then go straight on then into town on the virtually fully segregated route into town. So I think this is a good thing, and obviously I chair the cycle forum, and many of the people that come to that forum are obviously seeking this type of infrastructure right across the road. If you like, it's on-road infrastructure, it's not shared with pedestrians and other users, it's purely for cyclists, and that's a good thing. And then some of the comments, just in support, as a resident of Castle Hill, I'm very happy to see the plans go ahead. That's the first comment.
That wasn't me.
And that wasn't Councillor Page. Even as an experienced and confident cyclist who uses the road, I will find these changes beneficial. Castle Hill can get rather busy at times, well, it certainly can, and lots of speeding motorists as well. And getting bikes off the pavement, as Councillor Page has alluded to, has to help pedestrians. Then all measures which will make it possible to cycle on Castle Hill, so good news. And then the following, this will represent a huge improvement to travelling westwards out of Reading by bike as well as inwards. So if you look at the thrust of that, you can see that also overwhelming support, with probably sort of 70–80% support for most of these measures. I mean, there are people objecting, that there always are to these schemes, but I think that they're barking up the wrong tree. I think that a lot of these people are thinking about the situation of traffic in Reading pre-pandemic, and as Councillor Page says, I think things have changed. There's a defined rush hour doesn't necessarily exist in the ways that we previously saw. Not to say that the traffic isn't building up now more, but I think this is a helpful measure, and hopefully we'll get more people to decide to carry into town
on their bike, on electric bikes as well, into town using these safe segregated routes. So obviously fully support it, and let's hope that this is the basis of more bids which we can successfully get from the Department of Transport, perhaps using some of our own funding where we have it, to progress these routes into and out of town, the major ones. So obviously fully support it, and hope everybody in the committee will.
Thank you, Councillor Gitting. I don't see any more indications in the room. So can we move to recommended action? Subcommittee, do you agree to action in 2.2, 2.3? Committee agree? Okay, thank you. We move on to the next item, which is item 7, which is the result of statutory consultation proposal to remove cycling prohibition at the Reading railway station subway. Can I ask James to introduce this? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So we've completed the statutory consultation for the proposal to remove the prohibition of cycling underneath the Reading Station underpass. We've had a good number of responses, over 550. And although, as I've said before, statutory consultation isn't a vote, it is equally nice to see that we've had such a high number of positive respondents to this at a time when legally we're seeking objections. So we're asking the subcommittee this evening to make a decision on whether or not that prohibition is removed. If it is agreed that that prohibition be removed, then we would programme that around the improvement works that are taking place to increase the ceiling height, and the signs would be exchanged accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Councillor Adele Ward, you indicate.
Thank you, Chair. I was interested to see the results of this consultation and pleasantly surprised to see actually how strongly it was in favour. I was expecting the balance to be a little bit closer. So I'm really pleased that residents saw the vision that we have for active travel, particularly connecting North Reading into the centre. And I say that as a resident of North Reading who comes through that way on my bike, not only coming here, but also when I'm going to work. I looked with great care at the objections to it. At the moment, what we have is pedestrians going through and cyclists like myself getting off and pushing their bikes through, and then we have less considerate cyclists cycling through. And when I've just discussed this with residents online and in person, pedestrians who are concerned about cyclists, I have pointed out you've already got inconsiderate people cycling through, and what you're doing is adding the considerate cyclists who are getting off and pushing through. But also, we have ambitions to increase the number of pedestrians and cyclists coming through there. We have the route coming through the new SSE site, which will connect to a new crossing across Vaston Road. We have that route then carrying across the development that's on the current Aldi, was it the Station Retail Park, I think that one's called. And the aim of this is to get more people from North Reading coming into the station, coming through to the town centre on foot and by bike. So we need to think not just about the people who are going through there now and how they're behaving, but how, if we're successful, and I think we will be successful, in increasing the amount of active travel between central and northern Reading, how that will impact on this underpass. And so what I saw a lot of suggestions from the objectors with the talking about segregating cyclists and pedestrians through the underpass. I know it's not a huge space. Certainly you couldn't do any physical segregation, but we have a few metres from here, the underpass that connects under the IDR to Catesgrove Lane, which I think is actually narrower than that one. And that does have cycle and pedestrian segregation. You can't force people to respect the segregation, but at least it gives clarity to people using the underpass of whether they're using it the way that they should. And this is what I've said to people who are concerned about the underpass. At the moment, people are cycling through there anyway, and we can't tell them how to do that safely because they shouldn't be doing it. If you allow it, you can then put some guidance in place about how you should be cycling through. We also have an issue to the north of the station where it's unclear to cyclists what they should be doing when they come out of and into that underpass. it's possible that they should be going right down Trooper Potts Way and then using 2 crossings to get to the crossing across Vaston Road. You certainly, as a cyclist, know that when you're crossing Vaston Road, you can be on the pavement because that is a toucan crossing that you're using. But then how you're supposed to get from the pavement to the underpass, where currently you have to get off your bike, is unclear. So what I'd like to suggest is that we ask officers to look at how we could provide some form of segregation, at least segregation guidance through that underpass, so that both pedestrians and cyclists know how they should be using it to use it safely, but then also to continue that guidance so that cyclists have a route north of the underpass through to the Vaston Road crossing of how they're supposed to navigate that. There are some pinch points. I navigate part of it on the road, but in order to get to the ramp up to the underpass where I get off my bike, I do have to then go across a shared use, what I presume is a shared use area where the coffee van is. It's not actually signposted to tell me that it is, but I've got no other way of getting across there. And there is seating there and it comes down to the steps. You actually have a pinch point there already because of where the coffee van's sited. We discussed this in a cycle forum recently, and I was talking about my agonies about where I'm supposed to be going north of the station. And Kathleen from Critical Mass pointed out that with Christchurch Bridge coming from Christchurch Meadows, then going through to the underpass, there's a really good section there of car-free cycle route for families, and that therefore families really need to be able to cycle without getting onto the bus gate, without going onto the roads in that station section. So I'll add a caveat to that request for clearer route wayfinding through that section, that it shouldn't go onto the road, so that there is clarity from pedestrians. So pedestrians know where they can expect to encounter cyclists, and cyclists know where they should be going. Can't make people follow it either type, but I think this is the opportunity to get some clarity, and then maybe people can coexist in that space a little bit more calmly and less stressfully, because I do have sympathy for the people who objected to this proposal, saying that it felt frightening to have the bikes go through there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adele Ward. Councillor Page, you indicated.
Chair, can I just second Councillor Barnett Ward's request that we ask officers to report back on the issue of segregating or at least demarcating segregation in the tunnel, and I would certainly concur with the points that she makes about advisory cycle roundels or whatever it is that we need to look at putting down north of the station, because at the moment the complete absence is confusing and not in the interests of pedestrians and cyclists as they emerge from the northern end of the tunnel or coming towards it. So both of those, I think, are points that we need to review further. The southern end, obviously, is in more with the development works and the Station Hill works. There's going to be temporary arrangements for some while, but the north of the river is a more settled arrangement. The north of the railway line, rather, is a more settled arrangement in need of that clarity and guidance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Page. Councillor White, you indicated.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, Green support improving cycling and support this link becoming a formal cycle link. I was just going to ask about the south side of the station, because as a cyclist approaching from East Reading, it's a bit hit and miss where you should be going, where you shouldn't be going. I understand from the cycle campaign that you can cycle on the bit in front of the station, although it's not signed at all. So I would welcome, as well as more information on where cyclists should be going the north of the station. If we're getting information back on that, it would be good to include the south of the station as it is at the moment, and yeah, as it's going to be in the future. I think that clarity and that information would be useful if we could have a report back on that at some point in the near future.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Canal.
Thank you, Chairman. We supported the consultation when it came before this committee a while ago, and we're more than happy to support the recommended actions. I agree with Councillor Barnett-Wall that perhaps some looking at segregating. It's clear from the comments raised that there is concern of speeding cyclists going through there. One other issue that does appear to be a problem is the use of e-scooters and skateboards in there now and obviously going forward. I'm assuming e-scooters aren't or shouldn't be ridden in there at all, but where do skateboards fall? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Khan.
Good question. I'd need to check. It is my honest answer. E-scooters definitely not for use on the highway in Reading. They are not for lawful use on the public highway. I'd need to check with skateboards. If I'm honest, I'm not sure. Okay.
Thank you. I don't see any more Councillor Page.
Can I just, on the subject of e-scooters, can I just remind colleagues that they have had circulated, at least Mark Harper and the DFT have had the courtesy to reply to our letter, and that's been circulated to all members of the council, but it just confirms further delay in terms of bringing forward any national regulations. So the situation of that prevails in Reading, where all e-scooters are illegal on the public highway or on the pavements, remains the case. And of course, the police are really turning a blind eye to it, which is a fairly national picture as well, because of the lack of clarity as to future government intentions. We've had a bit of guidance in that letter, but there's no promise of early legislation, regrettably.
Thank you, Councillor Page. I don't see any more indication, and Mr. Penn, you have noted all those. So can we move to the recommended action? The subcommittee note the contact and agree with the report. Great, thank you. Right, we move on to item 8, which is Station Hill alterations to existing restrictions on Friar Street and Jarrah Street, which is on page 91 of your report. Mr. Penn, sorry, Darren, forgotten you. It's been a lot.
Thank you, Chair. This report sets out proposals linked to the Station Hill development, formerly known as Friars Walk, and includes alterations to the taxi rank and waiting restrictions located along Friar Street, as well as the pay and display bays and waiting restrictions along Garrard Street. These alterations are required to help facilitate revised pedestrian crossing facilities and the creation of new vehicular accesses to the development from Garrard Street. Given that the proposals relate to alterations to the taxi rank on Friar Street, developers have consulted directly with Reading Taxi Association. We're happy with the proposals in relation to the final scheme layout and the proposals during construction works. As set out in the report, the development is currently progressing with works proposed to commence on the Friar Street frontage within the next couple of weeks. The works are to be undertaken by the developer and forms part of the Section 27838 Highway Works Agreement with the proposals, with a full set of proposals detailed within the report. We're asking the committee to permit officers to carry out the statutory consultation. We need to advertise the alterations as detailed in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. I don't see any indications from anybody on the floor. So do we agree to the subcommittee agree? Yeah. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is waiting restriction review. Mr. Penman.
Thank you, Chair. So got two parts to this. First is an update on the 2022B programme, and regrettably, as the report's noted, we've been unable to deliver that consultation in time for this meeting due to the time constraints. However, that consultation is live now, and we will be bringing the results back to June's Traffic Management Subcommittee meeting for decisions. Which leads on to Part B. We've brought the list of new requests for potential inclusion in the 2023 A programme. And we're seeking agreement of which of those get taken forward and any that may need to be removed from that programme.
Thank you, Mr. Penman. As you all know that I normally take these ward by ward, so we have 5 in Abbey Ward first. Councillor Page, are you in agreement with those? Yeah. 1 in Battles Ward, which is Cranberry Road, request to remove few parking.
Yeah,
Councillor
happy just to
Hepburn?
have that go forward for
happy with-
consultation.
Caversham Ward, which is
Yeah,
Hamden Road.
That's fine.
Yeah, you're okay with those? We have 4 in Church.
Yep. happy for
Township
those to
Square.
Go forward, Chair.
Okay with those. And we have 2 in Coley, Carsdale Close and Coley Avenue. Councillor Gitting.
No, yeah, that's, well, Carsdale's been, we asked for it to be deferred with a view to, you know, with perhaps, you know, considering another scheme really, yeah, with, and that we've yet to see that, but, yeah, and yeah, the other one, yes, would be, we're obviously supportive of the Coley Avenue, yeah.
Right, Councillor Gitting, thank you. Mr. Penman, you got that? Right, we have 4 in Emma Green, which is Elm Drive, Oldham Avenue, Henley Road.
Yeah, Emma Green councillors are happy with all 4 of those. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll move on to those. We have 5 in Catesgrove, which is Newark Street, Northumberland Avenue. Sorry, agreement, yeah. Well, yeah. Next one we have is 3 in Kentwood, which is Pottery Road and Armour Hill.
Yep, we're content for those to go forward for formal consultation.
Thank you, Councillor. We have 4 in Norcote Ward, which is Elm Close, Hamsdale, Brisbane Road, Norcote. Councillor Page.
Chair, in the absence of Councillor Hoskin this evening, can I support the 4 of them? I'd particularly like to assure residents of Shilling Close that this is a matter that will again be consulted on. It's an issue that's come up over the years. There's been a lack of consensus, but hopefully we can now take this forward for further consultation and hopefully more agreement locally. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. 2 in Redlands, which is Upper Redland Road, Newcastle Road for double yellow line restrictions. Agree? Yep. 1 in Tarless, Beverley Road. Oh, sorry, yeah. My apologies, yeah. Southcote. Yep. I missed that one, John.
Yeah.
John Ennis.
Yeah, go forward.
Yep, yeah, happy with those, thank you. 1 in Tarless, Beverley Hill Road for double yellow lines. I think, agree. I didn't get, these were all sent out to councillors, so we did have some replies, so we agreed with them. 3 in Whitley, I'm looking at Councillor Lang.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Whitley Ward councillors support these. In particular, Fox Hayes is moving forward this year. I think we had some, got missed off last year, didn't it? And yeah, try and sort out this pavement parking. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. And that's the waiting decision. We'll move on to item 10, which is the local SIL fund scheme update proposals on Gateway Area Pedestrian Crossing, Imperial Way and Basingstoke Road, traffic calming measures. Mr. Penman.
Right, thank you, Chair. So we've got two schemes here today, which we've been developing and working with ward councillors. We're proposing to take to statutory consultations. So the first local SIL funded scheme is for 2 new zebra crossings in Whitley on Imperial Way and Whitleywood Lane. And the second is to add traffic calming measures to the existing 20-mile-an-hour zone on Shore Road and Boston Avenue.
Thank you, James. Councillor Ling.
Thank you, Chair. I'd particularly like to thank James for all the hard work he's put into the Imperial Way crossing and the Whitleywood Lane. It's been quite a technical job doing it. I'd just like to give it some context. It's a main arterial route going from basically Imperial Way all the way through to the road that runs parallel with the M4. A bit of a rat run. We've got the new health centre going in, so it's integral to that, plus the new police station moving in on Imperial Way, so there'll be plenty of blue light traffic. So we're not just plonking 2 zebra crossings in there for no reason. We would like the other junction at the other end of the Whitleywood Lane, which faces onto the B3270, runs parallel with the M4, but that comes under Wokingham District Council, so we'd like them to pull their finger out and maybe sort out that junction, because we have residents raising concerns about that. So we do our bit, let them do their bit. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ling. Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. I had the cycle campaign contact me on the Boston Avenue area scheme asking, and I spoke to Mr. Penman earlier in the day, they were asking if the speed humps in the Boston Avenue area could be of the sinusoidal profile, and Mr. Penman said that he would look into that, which would be much appreciated. And they were also asking about aligning the speed humps with pedestrian desire lines, but from the conversation we had, it seems that that would blow the budget, and there's some drainage and other issues in the area that would be harder to navigate. But yeah, just to reiterate, if the profile of the speed humps could be looked into to make them friendly to cyclists, that would be wonderful.
Thank you. Do you want to comment?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you. We just had the conversation. More than happy to have a look at the profile of the speed humps. It doesn't change the decision today. It would be something that we'd consider following a decision to implement them anyway, as a matter of course. Yes, the second proposal was around creating essentially tables, as I understand it, speed tables, which is a bit of a different beast. Great idea, not against it in principle. However, they are considerably more costly, and other elements that we need to consider, such as highway drainage, which we'd need to take this away and re-look at, as well as relocating them. So if that was something that was desirable by the subcommittee, we would need to take that away, and I couldn't recommend that we proceed to statutory consultation at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Penn. Councillor Gitting, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I mean, ward councillors have worked with residents for a long time on the situation in Shore Road, and particularly Boston Avenue, because as Councillor Leng was saying about his scheme, this is a well-known rat run, because what happens when, well, I say in traditional rush hour, it was more of a problem, but it still remains a problem, where people going down Berkeley Avenue on the way to access the A33 and Junction 11, when they noticed it was blocked, would turn right into Shore Road and then zip down Boston Avenue at speed, and then back out at the lights to gain a couple of minutes. Just a classic rat run. So I think in the interest of residents, you know, the scheme like this, whatever the design of the speed humps, it would be extremely beneficial, and one we would like to press ahead with within the budgetary constraints. I mean, I would make the sort of other point in terms of cyclists going down Boston Avenue. I'm not to say that there aren't any, but cyclists are likely to be on either the online markings on the road or on NCN 422, which I alluded to when I was speaking about Castle Hill. So I don't see this as such a problem as other humps in other parts of Reading with 20 mile per hour zones. I think we know what we're talking about, where I think it is an issue where you're going downhill and weaving in and out between the various humps. I think in Boston Avenue it's less of a problem, but if we can look at it within the budget frame to improve those, all the better.
Thank you, Councillor Gitting. Councillor Andrew Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say, as well as these two schemes which are being put forward and going forward in this paper, there's also the third scheme, the Northcourt Avenue scheme, which is being progressed. And I'm grateful to officers for facilitating a meeting at a very early stage with the Northcourt Avenue Residents Association to explore some of the concepts, the costs and the preferences. And that's very important, to involve the residents at an early stage. It makes people sign into a scheme and sign up to it. And I appreciate the work that's gone in to facilitate that, even though it's at a very early stage. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. James, you taken all those points aboard. So can we move to recommended action? The subcommittee knows the report and contacts agree with it. Agreed? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 11, which is the request for traffic management measures. Mr. Penman.
Thank you, Chair. So this is bringing forward new requests that we've received, and they are contained in Appendix 1. So we'll be seeking a decision from the subcommittee to consider whether they get moved into the principal or master list. Appendix 2 is a list of schemes where we've proposed some amendments to them. Such amendments like we would do in response to the petition that we've had earlier in the agenda, for example. And Appendix 3 is that master list for information. Thank you.
So I don't see any indication. So I normally take this by ward. So Abbey Ward, we have pedestrian. Councillor Page.
Yep. Chair, the Abbott's Walk one, as you will be aware, I met with the residents of Abbott's Walk. By the way, Abbott's Walk is the residential houses opposite the Forbury, just beyond Trooper Potts, and it's the cul-de-sac. And the problems of parking, that illegal parking that have been taking place on an increasing frequency, have brought forward this request to pedestrianise or de-highway, but to look at options that will prevent this problem. And also there is a suspicion that there are some motorists, either because of peculiar sat-navs or think that there is a vehicle access beyond Abbott's Walk. There is an issue of inadequate signage. There is a very small no entry over a very small cul-de-sac sign, which is about the size of a piece of A4, which you have to search for to see. So there are signage issues that we also need to address. But I'm just referencing this, Chair, because I know that some residents are keen to see this process started, and just to reassure them, this is the start of a process. We're not deciding any particular options. We're getting this into the system. Officers will look further at options, and then will be consultations in the normal way. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Page. Right. Next two we have is in Caversham Heights, speed calming in Albert Road, and also in Connorsborough Avenue. Councillor Connell.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm fully supportive of the three schemes, actually. There's number 6 includes Caversham Heights, and I'll mention that here because, as is mentioned in number 2, Albert Road, Kidmore Road, they're running roughly parallel, and a scheme on one will have an impact on the other road, and as it does mention in the officer comments. So I think those two schemes almost need to be looked at in parallel. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. So you know that. 2 in Emma Green, which is Lowfield Road and Peppard Road.
Thank you, Chair. As
Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you. As one of the ward councillors, yeah, happy with these being put into the system. Lowfield Road in particular is a very long road, and heading south on it, it goes downhill, and it can be tempting for drivers to begin to accelerate. There are traffic calming measures at both ends of it, north and south, but there's quite a long stretch where residents are concerned about speeding, and particularly with some new housing there recently built that's increasing the number of children in the area. So I'm happy with both of these to go forward on that, and happy with the ward suggestions in Appendix 3 as well.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Next we have is Caversham and Caversham Heights, speed calming Kidman Road. Yeah, Councillor Euro.
Yeah, just on from Councillor Carnell's comments. I knew about the overall petition from our MP Matt Rodder, which covered all three of these roads, but all six Caversham Heights and Caversham councillors actually met with the section of residents on the Kidmore Road from, I think it's Highmore Road to the Mount. And we also met with two officers in attendance as well. So residents were listened to. They had made a great deal of effort to survey all of the residents on that strip of road on both sides. And there were particular concerns about damage to the trees from drivers at speed. But the consensus was that they came out of wanting a 20-mile-an-hour zone and some consideration of traffic measures, so that this was, although it is likely to need to be considered with the other two schemes, it's a very separate strip of road in that when you hit that bit, it's that there's a number of sort of blind turners and what have you. So I'm glad that this is being sort of added to the list, frankly, because it's something that a decent amount of work went into.
Thank you, Councillor Yeo. That's taken up all. Next ward we have is Park Ward, waiting restriction, Palmer Park Avenue. Councillor White, you happy with that?
Yeah, happy with that.
Thank you, Councillor White. And then we got Caversham pedestrian crossing on Henley Road. Happy with those, subcommittee? Yeah. All right. And we move on to Appendix 2. Sorry, that was on there. Yeah, Park Ward, traffic calming on St Bartholomew's Road, Councillor. Yeah. Right. And Thames Ward pedestrian crossing Gosbrook Road near St John's Road junction.
Yeah.
Councillor Adele.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, there's a sad lack of crossing opportunities across this road.
Thank you.
Chair, can I propose that we note Appendix 3 unless any colleagues have got any particular observations? But I don't think we need to go through this because it's already had attention from the subcommittee on previous occasions. It's just a consolidated update.
Thank you, Councillor Pace. So does the committee agree? We have already had this Appendix 3 and you had another look at it, unless you want to raise a point. No? Thank you. So can we move to the recommended action? Can we note it? The committee will agree with this? Yeah, agreed. Thank you. Yep. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, coming in this evening on this cold evening, and that is the end of the public side of it. The next part is private and confidential, and I have to ask you, due to the act of privacy, to leave the building. Thank you.